Fascinating revelations recently from Sandy in regards to the galactic happenings. It would seem that those dealing with all the various aliens on this galactic stage have been successful, by virtue of the fact many species seem to be on board with helping the situation on Earth. For the longest time, the Earth has been in a demise spiral due to the continued destruction of the environment. The controllers, in their want to hold on to their human slaves, have suppressed and restricted them to such an extent, through enforced literalism and brutalitarianism, that not only are the vast majority of humans more trapped in their limited positions than they may have been, but also the constricted awareness of the population and the programmed agreement to the destruction of the world is bringing about the demise. In a desperation to keep their human cattle, the controllers are pulling the plug and exacting a population cull too. This constriction of awareness extends throughout the physical universes also, as Paul Twitchell once referred to the universe as a warring one, and consequently the bottom two rungs of the psych realms are dissolving, the physical level plunging into a darkness that will engulf everything. But perhaps there is light on the horizon, the light of the Is, as various species of aliens are now involved in rectifying this dire situation. The Pleiadians are lending a hand also, as Sandy spoke of how she had an audience with the King and Queen. The Syrians, who always were a peaceful species, dragged into a 10,000-year war by the Archons, are in the mix too, and even the war-mongering Archons are laying down their battle plans and conquests, as they are tired also of the unceasing conflict. The reptilian Archons are the instigators of the battles, generally, that rage through creation, their created consciousness as a species being very warlike and antagonistic. But a look at the structure of their race will shed a little light on this. The species is structured as a ruling elite, and all the rank and file reptilians must fall in line and comply with the dictates and decrees that stem from this central royal control. Very difficult must it be for those reptilians seeking new positions and reaching for the Is, with the risk of discovery and subsequent dire consequences. For the reptilians, as with many species, the Pleiadians, Syrians, etc., are telepathic, so whatever one reptilian knows or thinks, all others will be privy to. So concealing one's intention to break free and become more aware would be difficult and a risky undertaking. What has transpired of late, however, is the removal of the Queen of Orion. she was given an ultimatum to cease what she was exacting, and even granted the opportunity to retain all she has if she will comply. But her arrogance would prevail, and her fate sealed, and she would be cast unto the Phantom Zone. The Phantom Zone is a place where individuals of a particularly destructive, awareness-constricting, suppressing of peoples on a vast scale disposition will find themselves. Then they must start over, as though they only just entered creation from the ears, and what a terrible waste of all that experience accrued through the millions of lives lived. And, incredibly enough, the attitudes may remain, and it's conceivable that despite all that, the Queen may reposition herself again along similar tyrannical lines. She may repeat this cycle indefinitely, and perhaps she always has, until she chooses a different option and makes alternative, undestructive choices. But not only she is brooding in the Phantom Zone, but surely she will not be lonely, as many of a similar ilk and equally as twisted individuals are joining her, and continuing to do so. The Orion King, Enki, and Enlil are in the Phantom Zone also, the Orion royalty thus removed. And this liberates the Orion reptilians to the extent that they are able to choose and decide for themselves what to do with their lives, with no risk of repercussions. And so, many Orions are on board with what the new presentation is providing, and assisting, it would seem, in the restoration of affairs to a state more conducive for awareness for the peoples of the earth, as all that was the cause of the demise and restriction is removed. It will be interesting to see how things develop in the moments to come. Although the tyrants and warmongers, the controllers and dark brats are in the Phantom Zone, they still have their personal lives here in creation, until they reach their moment of passing over. Depending on their degree of awareness, which surely will be rather lacking, they will be oblivious that they are currently in the Phantom Zone, and only when passing over will they discover this to be the case. So it's likely they will continue to play out their nonsense as best as they are able, for this is all they do. This is what they have decided for themselves, their attitudes and created consciousnesses. For everything is an isness, everything is in this very moment, but the nature of agreed upon linear time in creation results in this anomaly, that you can be in the Phantom Zone now, but are still in a position on the physical level. Were you in the ears, everything would be now, and only from a viewpoint of more limited awareness can the simulation of the psych realms be experienced through seemingly differentiated vehicles in their corresponding life levels. running around independently of each other, with the ears being here and now in creation. The position can be attained here. It's just a matter of being and perceiving it. What was most fascinating was that another species have involved themselves to assist on an intergalactic level with this new unfolding process, and these are the Archons. What a shock indeed, as we have been led to believe that these Archon beings were a notoriously bad breed. David Icke has spoken of them in these terms: the energy-draining, interdimensional vampiric Archons that are the source of all the Earth's woes. His knowledge, based on various ancient scrolls written by Gnostics, dating back several thousand years, and discovered in a cave in the 1940s, making mention of this species as simulation-bending parasites. This has been widely accepted by virtually all who delve into the real happenings of the planet. But it would seem the Archons have been grossly misrepresented, because, as ever, the real side reveals all. And Sandy would discover, with her intergalactic dealings, that the Archons are nothing of the sort. They are benign beings who are in no way responsible for anything that has been blamed upon them, and are in fact willing to help and pitch in with the other alien races in this endeavour. Makes you wonder about these ancient texts. Perhaps they are not so ancient as we are led to believe. I suspect then that the controllers were aware of the Archons, and in a deliberate act of misdirection, the cause of human plight was dumped at the Archons' doorstep, and attention diverted from the actual reptilian Orion instigators. For, like all this ancient knowledge, these wise words and supposed holy works, all are generally written and spread for control and restriction purposes. Confusion and emotional distorted incitement is assured through these stories of old. Ideas as guilt, shame, and all this nonsense, which results in keeping people from their real awareness, and trapped in endless incarnational unconscious servitude. It's imaginable that much of the so-called discovered texts and documents that confirm this or that were not accidentally discovered. They were meant to be found, and probably are not as ancient as they seem to be. Maybe buried in the ground a week before they were recently discovered, I shouldn't wonder. And seems these particular Archon damning texts, as they were the subject matter dealt with predominantly within their yellowing pages, were to be found for the purpose of misdirection. Also intriguing is where the Archons reside, as up until now it has been assumed there is nothing that exists in the place that they call home. For it is the deep dark border, the place where creation ends and the real universes of light and sound, the true reality begins, the crossing over point that these Archons call home. These Archons are described as light beings with glowing blue eyes. They would be quite a thing to behold. Then this begs the question, if these Archons are living in what has been assumed up until this point to be a place where nothing dwells, what else might be out there? On a UK Skype from months ago, I pondered the possibility that something may dwell there, although I suggested something malign, as I formed the impression of a final test that the deep dark border provided. I creatively posed the possibility that all fears, concerns, and past life traumatic upwellings may manifest as a kind of monster, a final guardian that we all are confronted with when we reach the deep dark border, something that has been formed from the creational matrix, stemming from all the emotional churnings and projections of all individuals that dwell in the simulation, a kind of mega astral thought form monster. Its purpose to manifest and present the individual who stands at the threshold of the real universes, with all the fears, concerns, and trepidations most likely to instill doubt and cause the individual to forsake the ears and turn back. I used the example of Heather, Dwayne's girlfriend of years ago, surmising that she may have been confronted with the self-restricting attachment that her children represented, as this is why she turned back. Maybe it's just me, letting my imagination have free rein to bounce about. But I used to have a recurring dream in childhood. I would pass through these various stages, each represented by a different colour, and now I would understand these to be life levels. Then I'd enter a dark place, and it was imperative I move swiftly, as monsters lurked in the void that it was, and up I would ascend to what suggests now to be the real universes. This void area quite clearly representing the deep dark border, and always I had not only the impressions of monsters here, but was told this to be so by the individuals who always would guide my group and I through these levels. Maybe then there are monsters or creatures or subconscious manifestations lurking in the deep dark border, or perhaps the belief that this is so, that maybe humanity as a whole has been programmed to accept the Archons as evil, to the extent that when encountering the Archons in the deep dark border, the individuals who made it there assumed them to be the malign beings spoken about since time immemorable, and would perpetuate this agreed upon knowledge and enforce it further. The Gnostics who supposedly wrote those texts may well have ventured as far as the deep dark border, but possibly then tricked by the controllers, because to regard an Archon would be quite an experience in how unusual their appearances would seem, and all it would take would be for a sneaky, dark brat to inform these travelling, Archon-witnessing Gnostics that these beings are evil, and the cause of all humanity's plight. Perhaps further information may be forthcoming regarding what else may dwell in the deep dark border. Maybe it is the sole domain of the Archons. Maybe monsters or things of a less than sociable nature do exist there too. Maybe I'll try and find out for myself on the real side. If I ever get to meet an Archon, I'll be sure to ask them.